So information about Nintendo's next-gen system or the Nintendo Switch 2 seems to come out every day now, and today we're going to take a look at something that came out just a few days ago, and it's not from an insider or a leaker or anyone like that, but rather something that Nintendo themselves has officially done. So we're going to be taking a look at a patent from Nintendo that recently just got published a few days ago, and a lot of people have been speculating if this has anything to do with the Nintendo Switch 2 because it's talking about a very interesting type of new controller experience, and I do want to talk about this because I feel like it could be really cool if they actually end up doing it. Alright, so here we are on the US government's patent website, where we can see right here that this was published just a few days ago on August 3rd, 2023, and the applicant right here is Nintendo from Kyoto, Japan. And what's really interesting is if we look down here, this was originally filed in October of 2020, but it recently got updated again in April of this year. So it doesn't surprise me that Nintendo was probably working on their next system in like 2020 as well, probably even earlier. Like they've probably been planning this for a long time, so maybe they filed this as like an idea for something and they wanted to have a patent for it way back in 2020, but the fact that it got updated again in April of this year maybe could be a hint that Nintendo is kind of going through with this, and we could very well see it appear on their next system. But what exactly is this patent? Well, if we look down here, this gives us an idea of exactly what they're trying to do here, where it seems to be like this type of nub that's going to be on top of a control stick, and this nub is going to input different directions that you're also going to be able to do on top of an already existing joystick. So this nub kind of reminds me a little bit of like if you remember the new Nintendo 3DS that came out, on the right side they had like that little circular nub that you weren't really able to move like a joystick or like the circle pad, but you were kind of able to like force a direction onto it by just like moving your thumb on it. And I think it's going to be something along those lines, but it's going to be on top of a joystick now with some more movement. So it's very interesting because it talks about here how this nub is going to be able to move forwards, you can move it to the side, you can move it backwards, but it also has these spinning arrows which indicate that you're going to be able to spin it around as well in like a 360-degree circular motion. So this is very, very interesting. I mean, we can get a better idea if you look at this example right here, where it's basically like a normal joystick right here, but then on top of the joystick you have like this other little circular nub that you're going to be able to spin around and move into other directions. So it does make you wonder now where exactly this could be used. Well, if you have a joystick now and you tilt your joystick to a certain direction and then also tilt like this little circular thing on top of the joystick, you can input another direction. So how could this be used in games? I don't really know, but I'm sure Nintendo is probably planning something if this is actually going to go through, where maybe this is going to be like a really interesting way of playing games now. And honestly, it really could be something that Nintendo would do, because this definitely seems like a Nintendo type of idea. Like a lot of times Nintendo releases these systems or like these really wacky ideas that nobody really thinks of, and many times they do end up being like a very innovative way of playing games, and it's like a whole turning point for the video game industry because it ends up being used for everything else in the future as well. Best example of this is like with the N64 and having like the joystick. Of course, it was very unusual with like the design for the controller and having 3 handles, but that whole idea of a joystick was fundamentally put on the N64 and then was used into every other video game system after. And nowadays, having a joystick as a part of like a video game controller is a staple. So maybe this could very well be like a whole new turning point now if this ends up really changing the way that video games are played. It could be something like what Nintendo did with motion controls back with the Wii. And once that happened, everything now is also using motion controls too. So it definitely seems like a Nintendo type of thing to do. We don't really see like a lot of other video game companies really innovate by doing something crazy like that. I know the PS5 had like those really cool adaptive triggers. That was actually pretty cool with what they did there. So I am interested to see if Nintendo is going to do something with this, because I am wondering exactly how this would work, because it's like this little nub that you have on top of a joystick, and you're going to be able to tilt it, but you're also going to be able to push it down here as well, which is what these diagrams are showing. Now, I don't understand everything here perfectly because it's using a lot of like really like weird wording and stuff that I'm not really too familiar with, but it kind of gives you an idea just looking at these pictures here that you would have like a joystick circle and then having like this little circular nub that you can also move forwards, backwards, to the side. And it just seems like it would be a very interesting type of controller experience, where you can see right here that it gives you a better idea now that you're going to be able to tilt the joystick, and then you have like this little part on top of it that you're going to be able to move around as well. I don't understand all of this other like axis and data entry and all that type of stuff here that it's talking about, but basically the concept that we're talking about here is this patent for this potential joystick that could have some type of little nub or extra part on top of it. And I don't know, man, if this does end up getting used, I hope that this isn't going to be something that like breaks really easily, or it's going to be something that's like really hard to hold or control, but it really well could be a very interesting type of new gameplay experience. So is this patent actually going to be real, and could we actually see it on the next Nintendo system? Well, we don't know that for sure until we actually get to see the next system revealed, but I do want to talk about the possibility of if this could be real or not, because the thing about patents is that Nintendo is always filing them, and there's so many things that get filed and never really used, but they kind of just do it as a precaution if they ever decide to use that idea in the future or for something else. So a lot of times these patents aren't direct confirmations of if something is going to be used or not. Now, I don't know how many of you guys watching this video were around for the NX days when we were still speculating about Nintendo's next system before the Switch was revealed. This was one of the most infamous patents that came out during that time, where a lot of people, like you can see this article right here, this was published in December of 2015, and people were saying like, could this be the NX controller or even the NX itself? So this was a patent that Nintendo had filed way back then, and this was something that a lot of people were speculating if it could actually end up being used for the Nintendo NX. And I mean, at this time, we didn't know anything about the Switch. We didn't know anything about Nintendo's next system other than the fact that it was codenamed the NX. And then we discovered this patent that basically showed like this oval shaped controller, which was entirely a screen, but it had like these two little joysticks or nubs on each side, like these scroller triggers on top. And the whole concept of it was like that this would basically be an entire screen, and you would just use like these little joysticks or nubs to kind of press buttons and move around and have touch controls. And this was like a really crazy time because a lot of people were like, oh my god, is this actually going to be the next Nintendo system controller? And like it would show you like in these diagrams here, like you would click on these little thumbstick nubs here, and then it would give you options in the games and stuff. And this led to so many people making like these fake NX leaks, where this one right here is the most infamous Nintendo NX leak that happened, where I don't know if you guys remember this. I definitely remember this, and I remember how crazy people were going at the time this came out, because they had like these different images that came out of this, and it was based off of this patent. And then we had like pictures that came out with the screen turned on, and apparently it was showing like this tech demo for a game that people couldn't find. So then people got scared that it was showing us something that was confidential and it was actually real. And then at a point we even had like Breath of the Wild, or at the time it was still called Zelda U because we didn't know the title. We had like a little video that came out of somebody trying to show like exactly how the game would run on that, and people were just going crazy over this. But the point was, this never ended up being real. Nintendo never used this design for this oval controller with a screen or anything, and even though we were all speculating about this possibly being used for the NX, it never really was. Now, alternatively, these patents can turn out to be the real deal as well, as take a look at this one that came out during the Nintendo NX's era, where Nintendo filed about the possibility of a controller having detachable parts. And we can see right here that it would basically be like this screen, and it would have parts that would come out of it, exactly like what we got with the Nintendo Switch. And it's even talking right here, where we can see right here, it's like this tablet-like system with like Mario Kart running on it. And you can see right here, like this one especially, with how you can like hold it up with like a little stand on here, having like these two little side parts that can be detached, just like the Joy-Cons. So stuff like this was filed too in terms of a patent, and this turned out to be exactly what we got with the Nintendo Switch. So there are times where things like this can turn out to be real as well, but a lot of these things are filed, so we don't know for sure, you know, which ones are real and which ones are fake. So it's possible that this could just be like one of those oval shaped type of patents, like with the screen on it, like it's just going to be something that Nintendo files and is never used. Or maybe this is going to be a real one, like this one where they filed stuff about the Nintendo Switch, and that's exactly what was used in their next system. And so it'll be really interesting to see what Nintendo's next system is going to be like, and if this really could be a new type of controller experience that they're going to have for their next system. And maybe this is going to be like a part of like that new Joy-Con or whatever the new system is going to be in terms of its controller. And maybe they'll still have like a traditional Pro controller that you can have like a more normal type of experience if you want that as well. And this like is just going to be like that extra little gimmicky thing that's going to be a part of the next system. Who really knows? But it's going to be interesting to see how exactly they go about it, and if this is actually going to be used, because I'm trying to think of exactly like what types of games and what could really benefit from having like a joystick with an extra little piece on top of it to maybe give you some better inputs. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button, and also subscribe to the channel, as well as I'm going to be talking more about Nintendo's next system and the Switch 2 as this information keeps coming out. Comment down below and let me know what you guys think about all of this as well. How would you guys feel if the next Nintendo system is going to have a controller like this, where the joystick could have another part on top of it that you could move around or rotate, and it could be used in different games? How do you think it could be used? Definitely let me know in the comments down below. Go follow me on Twitter at @Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.